Buen día a todos. Mi nombre es Diana de Palabras Felices con Diana. Right now I'm here with my guest, Mr. Long, my beloved friend Christian Long. Hi, Christian. Welcome.
Namaste.
Namaste. Welcome to Palabras Felices con Diana. Thank you for accepting this invitation. I am deeply honored and grateful that you are here to talk about love, partnerships, romantic relationships, sex, and deeply connection with your partner and all the experience.
Even the dogs are getting excited about
yes,
the conversation.
Yes, yes, thank you for being here. So you suggest that we should first do an invocation or praying before we talk about sex?
Yeah, absolutely. Would you care to join?
Then you're going to explain me why, because I like to know.
Yes, of course.
Okay, please.
So let's all place our hands on our heart.
Mm-hmm.
Be aware of your heart. Be aware of the love in your heart, the softness, the sweetness, the tenderness and joy, like all the beautiful feelings within the heart. And be aware of your crown on top of your head. Be aware of the spiritual connection you have to God, to your spiritual teacher, to your higher self. And to strengthen the energy even more, we be aware of our heart and our crown simultaneously. Love of God and love of all. And you can silently follow along. Supreme God, Divine Father, Divine Mother, whoever you're spiritually connected to my spiritual teacher, Grandmaster Joel Koksui, to his spiritual teacher, Lord Bodhisattva Meiling, to all the great ones, holy gurus, holy masters, saints, archangels, holy angels, healing ministers, the angels of love, the angels of intimacy, sex, romance, sweetness, and joy. To our divine selves, our higher souls, we humbly invoke for your divine light, love, and power, for your help, guidance, and protection. We ask for greater awareness and understanding of love on all levels, from all facets. We thank you, we thank you, we thank you. With gratitude, respect, and love, so be it. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you. It was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Please, I would like to know first why we should. What do you like to pray to make an invocation before to talk about sex? Why? Before I wouldn't imagine that sex has this spiritual dimension.
Yes, that's actually very good. So there's many different levels of intimacy. There's many different levels of love. There's many different levels of connection. So in my early years of doing my spiritual practice, one of the spiritual teachers that I was following, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, he said, seek the highest first. Seek the highest first. So when we invoke or we pray to God, we're going to the highest possible source where all energy, all blessings, all love, intimacy, sex, sensuality comes from. And then that energy will then bleed into us so we can experience on a more tactile, digestible level, right? So we start with the highest first, work our way down. Now, we can be protected. We can bring in certain angels and certain beings and certain energies and certain support to make this a beautiful experience for the people who listen so they can tap into these energies and feel really, really good. Does that make sense?
Makes sense. So is erotism and sensuality and passion and that I don't know how to say that, if intimacy, people want to connect, is related to the higher beings, to God, to...
Yes. So there's a book recently written by a master pranic healer, Dr. Glenn Mendoza, who wrote about the spiritual truth. The name of the book is Spiritual Truth. And in one of the chapters in the books, he talks about the difference between pleasure, happiness, joy, and bliss. What we're all seeking to experience in our lives is bliss. But the ordinary common person who hasn't been properly trained and taught by an expert in their field, the closest thing they get to bliss is having an orgasm.
Okay.
Right?
Yes.
Right? So how long does an orgasm last for most people? A couple minutes, maybe, right? And then what? You're like, okay,
Again.
Yeah, right. That's over again. Can we do it again? Oh, okay. The man's not ready to do it again. We can wait another few hours. We can wait another couple days, what have you. But with bliss, with the proper training, you can access bliss, which is far more potent, far more powerful, and far more enjoyable than any orgasm you could ever have, right?
Wow.
So today, we're going to talk a little bit about putting yourself into that space. So, may I continue?
Yes, please. And explain, why do you think you have the tools and the knowledge to spread this with people that are listening right now? Do you have like lots of lovers? Have you made many women happy, or with respect, of course?
Of course. Yeah, that's an excellent question. So let's see, going back many years, many moons ago, being brought up as a child, I always had this romantic flame within me. I always was fascinated with candy and flowers and sweetness and holding hands and running in the park together and going to the beach and all these very sweet things. But at that time in my life, I had no one to show me the way, right? I was kind of stumbling around with girls. Girls were very confusing to me. They would say one thing and then do something else, and I didn't know why that was the case. Very confusing. And so at a young age, I ended up, 23 years old. I ended up meeting somebody, losing my virginity to that person, and then getting married to that person. So that was my exposure to sex, was meeting and marrying the first person that I was with. Now, I was with other people in an intimate way prior to that, but it was never sex, because to me, sex was like a big deal. I was terrified of sexually connecting with the wrong person.
Okay.
Part of that was conditioning, part of that was wrong programming, part of that was misunderstandings. But from that experience, having sex or losing my virginity, getting married, having a child with this person, getting divorced, then getting into another long-term relationship. I only had 2 partners, but they were very intricate experiences. So when those 2 relationships ended, I said, I have to figure out what I'm doing wrong. Something I'm missing in the world of intimacy, of romance, of sexuality, of commitment. And so I went on a 7-ish year journey of doing anything and everything I could to study from people who had been in long-term relationships that were successful, long-term relationships that were miserable, people who had slept with a bunch of people who were virgins until their late 20s and early 30s. And I was trying to understand what made women do what they did and what made men do what they did. And through that process of trial and error, not so much theory, because a lot of us live in our heads and live in theory. We read it in a book and we go, that must be true, right? Or we hear it from a friend and we go, that must be true. But we don't really know that experientially. So I wanted to go, is the stuff I read in the books and the stuff I hear from other people, is it true? I would read it in a book and I would go out and practice it. I would get advice from my more experienced friend and I would go out and practice it. And over time, I started to realize, okay, I can see the level of truth to this, but they were missing this, this, and this. So through that process, I was able to fill in the gaps of what I thought intimacy was. And what I've realized is a big challenge in society at large is from the conditioning in our media, right? We have the Disney tales of like the damsel in distress.
And porn.
And porn, for sure. So Disney is like porn for women, right? It gives them the perception of all I have to do is be a damsel in distress. Prince Charming will come and save me, and then we'll live happily ever after. But the interesting thing that Disney never covers is they never show you what happens after they get together. What happens when life becomes ordinary? What happens when you start having routine? What happens when you have arguments and disagreements and you can't see eye to eye? Then what do? Disney never covers that. Disney only covers the pursuit. Once the pursuit is done, you're left on your own, right? Then you have pornography for men, and men are visually stimulated. So they're like, okay, I'm going to get visually stimulated. I'm going to release. And then because of that release, my ambition goes down. My drive to connect with women goes down. My desire to show up in a certain way goes down. So technology and media have adversely affected how we relate to one another as men and women.
But also, do you think literature or films are also modulate the way we see relationship? Not only Disney movies, for example, but I like to think in Italian movies, for example, where men can have many partners and there are they behave in a very civilized way, like very respectful. They are very, because it's cultural. And I wonder if to have many loving partners, it's a tendency for men or it happens in women also.
So in some cultures, like for instance in Bhutan, it is perfectly acceptable for men to have many wives and for women to have many husbands, as long as the partner can provide emotionally, financially, and sexually for the partnership, right? So if you can't provide for them, it's recommended not to do that. So yes, in Italy, it works that way. In France, it works that way. In the United States, it doesn't really work that way.
No.
Because there's too many factors going on. There's too many interruptions, and there's part of technology in current living is if I don't like you, if I have a little argument with you, if I have a little disagreement with you, I'm done. I'm out. I separate myself because I can go on an app and find another person instantaneously to replace you. And that's a problem. So we go through this experience of variety, of breadth of experience, but we have no depth.
Okay.
So we don't spend time getting to know ourselves, and we don't spend time getting to know another person. That's the problem.
Is that why exclusivity? Is that why exclusivity it's related to depth? Can we say that?
Yes. So if I ask you the question, do you know yourself backwards and forwards on every level right now? No. So if you don't know everything about you and you have been with you your entire life, how much do you really know about the person next to you that you've been dating for 3 months, for 6 months, for 5 years, right? How much do you really know about that person, right? So the first part I wanted to start off with is defining love. What is love?
Yes,
so
what is love?
Love is one of the 3 essential qualities of our soul. As a spiritual being, we're light, we're power, and we're love. Love means to provide, to protect, to nurture, and to nourish. And that can take place in many different ways. So in our spiritual practice, when we bless people or when we heal people, that's love. When we share our knowledge and our expertise with other people, that is mental love, mental caringness. When we use words of encouragement, you can do it, you're amazing, you're beautiful, I love you, right? That's emotional love. Then when you show up and you provide physical love, physical sex, you bring the other person to orgasm, you make sure that they feel loved and cared for and provided and protected. That's a form of physical love. And then you have financial love, providing for somebody financially. So you can see how love doesn't just show up from one intimate partner to another, but love can be for all people, right?
Yes. And what happens if my partner doesn't speak the same kind of love that I want, and I am not able to communicate or to express in words, and he understands in words what I want. I want that he understands me even if I don't speak anything. I have experienced this kind of situations many times, and this makes me think, or makes me wonder if there is a tendency, women are like this, men behave like this, and I'm not sure if there is also the dimension of, no, there's my background, I have traditions, there is not only my that's not, it's not correct to say I behave like this because I am just a woman, and this is a stereotype way to see things.
Correct. So our religious upbringing affects how we show love and receive love. Our cultural upbringing affects how we show love and receive love. Our childhood experiences, how we observe our parents showing love and sharing love, affects how we perceive love and give love or share love. It's also our karma. It's also trauma that we may have had. So if our natural state as the soul is to be loving in any way, shape, and form, then what we have to do is remove the blockages, the obstacles, the impediments, the trauma, the programs, the cultural upbringing to be more loving, right? We have to remove those things. So you say, well, I have a partner and I want him to show up in this loving way, but he's not showing up in this loving way, which is understandable. So this comes back to self-love, self-respect, good self-esteem, and the vulnerability of saying, hey, I would love if you touch my hair like this. I would love if you hold my breasts like this.
But
I would love you.
I hope he understands. He knows. I hope he knows that I don't.
But that's the problem. Men are not mind readers, and women are not mind readers, right? So we have to understand that from the other person's viewpoint. Does that make sense? Right?
It makes sense, but it's not logical when you experience it, I think.
Right. So that is a misconception that if the person loves us, they will already know how to speak, how to act, how to show up in a loving way. That's not always accurate, right? So we have to be courageous enough and vulnerable enough to say, this is what I would like. Now, if you express that consistently over a period of time and the person is unwilling to do those things, then that's another opportunity to say, this is what I need, want, and require in our relationship, and I'm not receiving it. Can I ask why? Right? Seeking to understand. Okay, makes sense? So we have to remove the blockages to love because our essential nature is to love. We want to love, we want to give, we want to share, we want to nourish, we want to soothe the pain of those closest to us.
What's the energy approach to do to remove those obstacles? Because I have always hear from therapists that they said communication is important, always communicate. Of course, it's important, but please explain me that energetic approach to that.
Sure, of course. So there's 3 major chakras that deal with love, intimacy, sensuality, sexuality, and connecting. There's more, but in general, to keep it simple, you have your sex chakra, you have your heart chakra, and you have your crown chakra. Those 3 chakras are very, very important in having a healthy, romantic, loving, spiritual connection with your partner. If one of those connections is minimized or inhibited, the relationship will not be as loving, as harmonious as it could be. So when you're sexually aroused by somebody, when you look at their picture and you get all worked up, your eyes get all big and your face gets flushed with red energy and prana, you have a sexual connection with that person, right? Sexual chemistry. Now, have we known relationships that are built just on sexual connection that have lots of drama and chaos? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, of
Yes.
course. Yes, right? So you cannot just stay there.
No.
It's great to have it, but you also have to have the other connection. So then you have the heart. So the heart, from you to the other person, loving them, providing for them emotionally, making them feel good, making them feel loved and appreciated and respected, right? So that's the loving aspect from heart to heart. Very, very important. And that is also the lubricant for any disharmony or friction or irritability between you and the other person. Because when you're in an intimate relationship with somebody, you're close together, your thoughts are close together, your emotions are close together, and you're having friction.
Yes.
Right? The ultimate lubricant is love. So when you love somebody, it soothes that friction, soothes the pain, and you forgive and you forget, right? Then you have the spiritual connection, the crown connection. And this is one of the most important, and the reason being is when you're seeing somebody from the soul's perspective and you're connecting not from sex or even heart to heart, but you're connecting and seeing them as a divine child of God, you can see the divinity in them. That means you have love, you have understanding, you have compassion, you have tolerance, you have patience, which are all super important qualities to have for a loving, harmonious, long-term relationship. But most of us get stuck at the sex chakra, or we get stuck even at the solar plexus, which deals with lower emotions, and we don't transcend, we don't move up, we don't go higher. That's why most relationships are built on sex. So when the sex is unfulfilling, the person leaves.